I know the world thinks that men are supposed to be emotionally strong at all times. For example, if your family treats you like crap, you're expected to bottle things up and act like a man. But what no one thinks about is that men are humans too. We have feelings, and if somebody constantly treats us badly, it hurts. Yes, we are not allowed to cry or whine like ladies, but we get hurt too. I'm tired of people telling me how to act and how not to act. For years, my mom treated me poorly, and each time I tried to tell someone about it, I would get all these stupid parts on, telling me that I'm some dumb stuff and I need to handle it like a man. I was born into a family of two, my mom and dad. The 2 years after I was born, my mom gave birth to Donald. As a child, I did not need to be smart to figure out that Donald was my mom's favorite kid. I think I noticed when I was about the age of 5. Although I understood early that babies require a lot of attention when they're born, I did not feel abandoned when my mom was always spending time with him. But when Donald turned 3 and I turned 5, I began to notice that my mother could neglect me the whole day, maybe feed me twice if she remembered to, and would spend the rest of the day with Donald. She was literally there in every moment of Donald's life, while I would stay wondering why my mom did not love me as much as she loved Donald. I remember there was a birthday I made a wish, and my wish was for my mom to love me as she loved Donald, and when I said that, everybody was shocked. Everybody in the room looked at her and she laughed it off and said that I was just talking nonsense, that she loved me just as she loved Donald, and that was her just covering up the embarrassment. That day, after all the kids and their parents left the house, I remember my mom pulling me by my ears, placing me on her thighs and giving me 2 hard spankings. She said that she's forgotten it was my birthday and she was spanking me for embarrassing her like that in front of all of the guests. I cried. I felt terrible because I thought that she would talk to me after what I said, but instead I got a spanking for wishing for a change. My dad, he was barely at home. He worked a 9 to 5, and sometimes his 9 to 5 would become a 9 to 10. Since my mom was a full-time housewife and a stay-at-home mom, my dad had to do multiple jobs to take care of the family. Back then, the only time I got to see him was if I insisted on staying up late or waking up early enough to spend time with him before going to school. Luckily for me, my dad was a gentle soul and a caring man, and he treated me and Donald equally. He had no favorite son, and he made sure that he got me and Donald's gifts at the same time. In the area of gifting, my mom was the polar opposite. Every time she went grocery shopping, she would find something new to buy Donald. Whether it was a couple of those tiny cars or a masculine toy set, she would get it for him and ignore me. If you were a child and you were in my situation, you'd know that you cannot ignore being ignored. It always hurt so badly, and each time I tried to explain to my dad that my mom was being partial, she would find a way to turn the tables, and she either claimed that I did something bad and she was punishing me by not getting me a new toy set, or that Donald did something good and she was simply rewarding him and getting him a new toy. It was always one excuse for another, and I hated it. The only thing my father would try to compensate me for would be to buy me something the next day or take me on a short road trip with him. Somehow I sensed that my dad knew what my mom was doing, but he never confronted her in front of me, and I do remember that there was a time he scolded her in my presence because she had left me alone in the house and went out with Donald. She didn't expect that my father would return home early that day, but surprisingly he did. My dad was so mad to find his 7-year-old locked in the house alone, while his wife left with her golden child. Because of being scolded, for the next few days she acted all nice to me and carried me along to every place that she went to. But that did not last for long. I'd say in less than a week she returned back to her original ways. On Donald's end, he grew up to be a spoiled, disrespectful brat. He walked around the house like a mini king because he knew our mom always had his back. Donald did not respect me. In fact, he never regarded me as his older brother because of all the things my mom had put in his head. I can't even begin to count the number of times Donald and I fought. 9 out of 10 times. He was the cause of our fights, and I'll admit I hated him a lot when we were younger. My mom always supported him, and even when she knew Donald was at fault, she would end up blaming me for fights. Because of this, Donald grew up thinking he could always get away with whatever he did. He knew his mommy dearest would always bail him out of his trouble, and this caused him to make very many wrong decisions in life. Somehow, Donald being my mom's favorite made my dad and I closer. It got to the point where I stopped craving my mom's love and I started focusing more on myself and my dad. At the age of 13, I made some new friends in school, and because they all worked after school hours, I joined them in finding a job. My new job kept me out of the house for hours at the holidays, and they were even better because I did not get to see all the drama at home. I worked there till I completed high school, and I'll be very honest with you guys, that job was my saving grace. After high school, I got into college the same year, and I left the house totally. I completed college and moved back to my hometown because I was able to get a decent job there. When I moved back to my hometown, I thought of renting my own apartment, but Dad insisted that I move back into the house so I could save money, instead of wasting it on rent. He claimed it was his own little way of supporting me, and if I wanted, I could support the house from time to time. Although my dad wanted what was best for me, I knew he was feeling lonely. My mom and Donald had formed a team, and my dad was left all by himself. Spending time with my father was one of the main reasons I moved back into the house. Also, I thought it would be wise to move back in and support him in the little ways that I could since Donald and my mom were not working. To date, I still wonder how my father was able to cope with caring for 3 people all by himself. He never complained for once, and he never nagged for my mom to get a job. My mom always said that being a full-time housewife was a job on its own, and he respected that. He allowed her to do her thing while he did his thing, and when I moved back into the house again, I expected that my mom would change, but she didn't. I'll be honest, even though I acted like I no longer cared about how she treated me, I still did. I even bought her a fancy gift once, hoping that she would love it and maybe treat me differently, but instead of appreciating her gift like I expected, she told me that she could not wait for Donald to get a job, so he could buy her more expensive gifts. Hearing that from her really hurt me, and I walked away without saying anything to her. After that day, I focused more on spending more time with my father. I focused on buying only him these fancy gifts. Most of the time, my mom would see them and say, "Oh, now you're only getting stuff for your father? Your dad and I raised you together, but he's the only one getting gifts." Each time she would say that, I'd pretend I didn't hear her and would continue talking with my dad. Because of her jealousy, it did not take long for her to start treating me badly again. Instead of talking like she was talking to an adult, she would yell at me like she was yelling at a teenager, or even make food for everyone except me. Her excuse was always, "Oh, Mark, I don't know. You are coming home early this day. I would have made something for you." I knew exactly what she was doing, but I chose not to react the way she expected. Instead, I would take my father out with me, and we would eat a nice restaurant dinner. Then return home with some takeout, and I would eat the next morning and not give anything to her. Things continued like this for a year, and if I'm being sincere, I was beginning to enjoy the look on her face every time my dad and I partnered to do something. Without including her, of course. She was beginning to feel how I felt like a child, and I loved it. Unfortunately, my father, he passed away from a chronic sickness when, he's been battling with it, and that was when my world shattered. I don't know if people feel the same way when they lose their parents, because mine was really bad. My dad and I have become so close, and he became the reason I always longed to go home early. After I moved in with them, I asked him to quit his extra job because of his health. I covered his extra expenses at home. Sadly, when he passed away, he was still very vibrant and active, but the stupid illness just had to take him away at the wrong time. A couple weeks after my father passed, my mom organized a meeting and told me that since I was the oldest son and the closest to my father, I was now the man of the house. Meaning, I had to do everything my father used to do when he was alive. This included paying rent, taking care of utilities, bills, groceries, and other things that, were needed to keep the house running. I told her that's ridiculous. I couldn't do all the responsibilities by myself, and I even told her that I was moving out. Immediately, when I told her that, she laughed and said that if I moved out, it meant that she would make Donald the sole heir of her inheritance. An inheritance she was expecting from her dad, my grandfather. Okay. Speaking about that inheritance, it was not the first time she threatened to cut me off from the inheritance. I had heard that 1,000 times, and, well, when I was a teenager, I was just sick of hearing it. Knowing my mom so well, I knew she would bluff over something like that, and I did not want to take any chances because that inheritance was a lot of money. And whatever she'd give me out of it would cut out years of toiling and hard work. Because of her threats, I remained in the house against my will. I was forced to pay rent, taking care of other bills, paying for groceries and other things, and while I was doing all this, Donald and my mom were busy enjoying it. Donald completed high school and refused to go to college, claiming that school was meant for losers. My mom did not seem to care too much about his education, especially since he was always returning home with very expensive gifts for her. Trust me, guys, for somebody who was not working, the kind of gifts he bought my mom on a weekly basis were far beyond him. Because of these gifts, my mom never bugged Donald to contribute to the house in any way, like she often bugged me. She treated Donald like he was a king, and would even make demands on the kind of gifts that she wanted next. There's no asking if Donald and I had a bad relationship, because we did. We could barely talk for any minute without making each other mad, and he would deliberately pick fights with me and always acted like our mom would live forever to always save his butt. For the next 9 months, I continued to pay the bills and take care of the home. Doing all these things did not make any difference to my mom. She acted entitled to everything I did for them and made it sound like she was doing me a favor by letting me live in the same house with her. Despite how hard I worked my butt off, Mom still complained and she nagged a lot. If I was late to give her money for groceries, she would yell at me and call me all kinds of degrading names. She didn't even let me bring my girlfriend. I wanted my girlfriend to move in with me, but my mom created such a scene, and she embarrassed my girlfriend. She claimed that my girlfriend could not live in the same house with her, and even insulted and called my girlfriend a lost and homeless girl. This was the height of insults I received from her and Donald, and I promised I'd make them pay for embarrassing me in such a way. Also, I was so tired of her always rubbing her inheritance in my face and downgrading all my efforts to please her. I know you all might be thinking that I was stupid to let her inheritance control me, but I knew what I was doing. Maybe I didn't know in the beginning, but I knew as I spent more time with her. As for Donald, I began to suspect that he was doing something shady and illegal because it had to be the only way he could afford that kind of lifestyle he lived and the kind of gifts that he got my mom. At first, I thought he was dealing drugs, and I would not have been surprised if I found out he was. I tried my best to search his room for any sign of drugs, but I could not find any. So, I started a fresh investigation. To my shock, I found out that Donald was doing way worse than I imagined. From the day I saw him with 2 of his friends who acted like him and dressed like him, I knew something was up, and it turned out to be right. All this while, Donald's been telling our mom that he won the lottery. He'd been robbing people, and he belonged to an infamous group of thieves in our town, and those thieves did all kinds of terrible things. They robbed people in broad daylight and at night too, and they would take your bag, your money, your car, and other valuables at gunpoint. My mom had no idea. After I found this out, I thought of confronting Donald and my mom, but my girlfriend gave me a better idea. Since they've been treating me like trash and threatening me at the slightest provocation, I decided to take a short trip and visit my grandfather. I told my grandfather what I found out about Donald, and he was shocked. I knew he would not believe me and would flag it as allegations, so I showed him proof and told him about all the expensive gifts that he's been buying my mom. I also told my grandfather all I've been going through in my mom's hands and how terrible she's been treating me despite everything I did for them. My grandfather was so mad he promised he would teach my mom and brother a lesson. He wasn't just mad that my mom was treating me badly. He was mad because he's been sending my mom $5,000 on the house every month since my dad passed away. Yet she used the money for her selfish needs and threatened me to stay and take care of the house. When I heard that my grandfather has been giving her all that money, I was so mad. I wanted to confront her, but my girlfriend advised me not to, and I'm glad that I listened to her. If not, I would have ratted myself out. I met with my grandfather 3 days ago, and since then I've been crashing at my girlfriend's apartment. Just this evening, my mom called me screaming on the phone. It turned out that my grandfather was no longer giving her any inheritance, and everything that he had has been willed to my name. That day alone, she called me a piece of crap and all kinds of names and said that I've ruined her life. She went as far as saying that she regrets giving birth to me, and in her words, "I don't know what I did to God to deserve a child like you." I've never been so hurt in my life. These particular words she cut me deep, and so I feel horrible right now. I'll be honest with you all, I did not think my grandfather would give all those inheritances to me. My granddad said that he's been expecting my mom to change, but since had refused to. It's preferable he gives his money and properties to someone that's more worthy. My mom and Donald have been blowing up my phone, and I feel so bad right now. Am I the a-hole for telling on Mom and Donald? I thought my grandfather would punish them by cutting out a piece of the inheritance and giving it to me directly. I did not just expect that he would cut them out totally. I look forward to your suggestions and comments. Thank you. Update number 1. Hello everyone, thank you so much for your support and comments. Yes, you're all right. My story's the tip of the iceberg of what I've faced at my mom's hands. I only summoned the courage to post this here because everyone I've tried to talk to didn't see things eye to eye with me. It's on days like this that I miss my dad. As of the time I made this update, my mom and brother have ganged up against me. Yesterday I was at work and my mom showed up and created a scene. She said that I've ruined her life and it was her turn to ruin mine. Thank goodness security did not let her into the premises. Otherwise, things would have gotten out of hand. Donald's been sending me threats with different numbers, and I know he's only trying to scare me. But it's not working. My grandfather's promised that his decision's final, and not even my mom can get him to change his mind. I don't know this, but before she called me that day, she went to my grandfather to beg him to change his mind, but he refused. When he saw that my grandfather wasn't falling for her deceptive words and appearance, she flipped and started to call him a horrible father and other names. Long story short, my grandfather kicked her out of his house and she returned home furious. When she got home, she tried it and destroyed some of my stuff. Let me rephrase that. She destroyed some of my stuff and my work tools, and I had to move my remaining stuff out of the house. Moving out of the house was something I always wanted to do, so I saw that as an avenue to finally get out. And since this happened at the beginning of the month, it meant that she did not even lose her inheritance, but it also meant that she would no longer be getting any monthly allowance from her dad. Somebody here commented that it was only a matter of time before she tried to get close to me, and to be sincere, I doubt that. But just yesterday, I received a call from her and she sounded very sober on the phone. Immediately she called my name and she began to cry and say that she was sorry for all the bad ways that she treated me. I just laughed and told her that she wasn't. She didn't even let me speak. She was rambling about how she just realized all I've been doing for her and how much responsibility I took off her shoulders. Then she begged me to come back home. I ended the call on her and she called me back screaming. I knew that she was pretending and she could not pretend for long. She's been texting me for us to meet and talk, and you know what? I agreed. I'll make another update after our meeting. Thank you. Update number 2. Hey guys, I'd be very grateful if I said that I did not appreciate all your comments, suggestions, and votes. Thank you to everyone who's still asking, but I no longer feel bad for telling on my brother and my mom. I know this sounds evil, but a part of me really wanted to punish them for everything that they've been doing to me. Anyways, I met with my mom 2 days ago and she's begging me to move back in. She apologized for not telling me about the monthly allowance her dad's been giving her for the house. It would not be a shocker if I've told you that she used some of her money to go to the spa, bought herself some nice wigs, shoes, and whatever else she needed. Then she claimed that she's always just giving some of the money to Donald to gamble for her. She still has no idea what Donald's been doing, and I know my grandfather must have told her, but she probably does not believe it. Now, my mom's saying that since I've refused to come back, I should at least be paying her rent. I laughed so hard when she said that, and I told her to go get rent from her golden boy. The moment I said so, her facial expression changed and she slapped the coffee cup in front of her. Then she got up and abused me loudly and walked out on me. I had to pay for the damages and I walked out of that coffee shop covering my head in shame. I don't know why my mom thinks that I'd be so easy to manipulate. She seems to have forgotten all the horrible ways that she treated me as a child. In fact, the more I remember it now, the angrier I am. You guys are asking that I block her number from calling me, and believe me, I really want to. but my girlfriend's insisted that I don't do that. I know she doesn't like my mom that much, so I don't know why she's asked me to not block her yet. I blocked Donald a couple days ago, but he's still been sending me messages with other numbers. I've just decided it's time to report the threats to the police, just in case he decides to move just from sending me messages to something else. Anyways, thank you guys, you are the best. I no longer feel any shame sharing my story here. I will make another update soon. Final update. Hello everybody, I deeply apologize for taking a little bit of time to post. I've been away from social media for the past couple of days because something has happened. 2 days after I met my mom at the coffee shop, I received a call from her and she was sobbing right there on the phone. Well, this time around it sounded so real and I could tell that she was not faking it at all. When she finally spoke and I asked her why she was crying, she told me that Donald's been arrested by the police and he was charged with robbery. I knew it was only a matter of time before things would get to that level for Donald. I tried to calm her down, but she just kept crying. She said she didn't believe Donald would do something like that and that it was impossible the police were framing him. I used the opportunity to ask where she thought Donald's been getting all the money to buy her expensive stuff. You know, wear these pricey clothing, fund his lifestyle, and she said she believed that he's been winning the lottery, and I burst into a loud laughter. I did not think I would say this, but I felt so much pity for her, but I didn't show it. Instead of showing it, I told her that she did not deserve any pity, and she made Donald the person that he had become. Hearing that made her cry even louder, and I could tell that she was crying out of frustration. Her dad cut her off out of the will, and her golden son's been arrested for robbery, so all she had left was the rejected stone, which is me. She could not move into her father's house because her father forbid it, especially after all the abuse that she rained on him. I spoke with my girlfriend, and she advised me to give her 2 months' rent and then tell her to find work, and I know she did not deserve all the kindness, but I would not sleep well at night knowing the terrible condition that she was in. The day I gave her the 2 months' worth of rent, she thanked me and asked what she would do from there. I told her to go and find work because I would not be helping her again. It's been a week since I spoke to her last, and for her own good, I hope that she's found work. I'm already ready to cut her off because I know having her around me will only bring back the memories of all the things I went through as a kid. I know my late father would be proud of how I acted. Some people may think it was foolish of me to give her that 2 months' worth of rent, but it's not. My girlfriend and I will be moving to a big apartment, so she cannot just waltz to my girlfriend's apartment anymore. If she tries to contact me again for help, I'll not hesitate to block her number and give her a piece of my mind. Anyways, thank you guys for all the great advice, suggestions, and comments. I would not have done this all without y'all. You're the best. So, it looks like this was one of those stories where OP wasn't going to be able to escape the grasp of the mom. It looked like OP started out as a floor mat, but at the end of the story, he was ready to cut all contact. A lot of the people in the comment section, though, they weren't very happy that he still decided to give her 2 months worth of rent and told her, you better go find a job now. A lot of people were just saying he should have cut her dry and blocked her on everything. I want to know your thoughts on that, so let's talk about it down below in the comment section. If you guys are new to the channel, my name's Mr. Reddito. I narrate stories like this every day. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out on any upcoming stories. And by the way, this is only my first out of 3 channels, so check out the other channels down below for different type of stories, including revenge stories or cheating stories. We have it all. I hope you guys have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow. And of course, remember, it's cool to be kind. See ya.